Hi, it's Amy from Select Travel Holidays, home of Cruise Select. You're joining me here on board the Sylvia Earle in Antarctica. We're not far from Recess Cove and she'll be doing a landing shortly. I've been having an incredible time. It's such a unique experience, and now I'm going to share a bit of the ship with you. She is an expedition vessel, so different to some of the other cruise ships I've been on, but completely charming, and she carries a maximum of 132 passengers. So come join me on this video tour of the Sylvia Earle, the newest ship. She was only launched in 2022 for AE Expeditions, which is part of Aurora Expeditions. So come take a look around.
But before we go inside the ship, you can see how different she is from the outside. With just 132 passengers and 104 metres long, she's smaller than a lot of other ships, even fellow expedition ships, a couple of which we saw in Ushuaia the day before we embarked. But her Ulstein X bow is really noticeable and helps set her apart. As you can see, it's inverted. Initially designed for offshore industry, the first expedition cruise ship to feature the X bow was AE Expedition's other ship, Greg Mortimer, in 2019. Inspired by orcas and how they move through water, the bow uses cutting-edge technology created by Ulstein to cut through the swell for a smoother transit through waves, both reducing fuel consumption and making it more comfortable for passengers as it's much more stable. This certainly reduced pitching, but it didn't necessarily stop the rolling motions you can feel while sailing. And full disclosure, I am such a bad sailor, I still managed to get seasick during the first day of the Drake Passage, even though it was the smoothest crossing of the season, and even though I could still tell it wasn't rough, but I think that's just me and not taking enough Dramamine. Also, as she's an expedition ship, you can find Zodiac launching platforms on both port and starboard side on the aft of deck 3, as well as the activity launching platform at the aft. We're going to start our tour towards the bottom at deck 4, which is below the main deck on 5. And we're starting here because this is where you'll find the expedition desk, which is where you'll find information on the daily plan, which could potentially change. Things are a little bit more in flux on an expedition voyage. So it's important to keep an update on that, but also where you'll find information on, you can sign up for the special interest Zodiac cruises, such as photography or citizen science. It's also, if you were to wish not to go ashore on a landing or a Zodiac cruise, you'd have to sign up to say that you're staying on board, because obviously the E-team need to know all the necessary logistics for planning, etc. It's a little bit more involved on an expedition ship. And you can also find the activities board, which is if you're doing perhaps, say, the snorkeling like I was, or the kayaking, paddling, there's some boards. There's a QR code which you can scan to get onto the WhatsApp group for your respective activity group, as well as sign up to say whether you want to go on the morning or afternoon activity if it's available. Also on this deck, there's also a lot of accommodation, which we'll look into in a minute, don't worry. But also what's important on deck 4 is that it's got access to the mudroom on deck 3, which is kind of, in a way, one of the major hubs of an expedition ship, because it's here where you get changed into your muck boots and get on and off the ship via the Zodiac. It's also got access to the activities garage, which is where so snorkelers will find their dry suits waiting for them, and the kayakers will have their kayaks and all gear and stuff that they need. So in a way, this is kind of, I guess, the expedition hub of the ship, as can be found on deck 4, or at least access to it from deck 4. Most accommodation can be found on decks 4 and 6, although there's a few exceptions, such as the couple of triple share staterooms on deck 3 with portholes, and there's I think about 4 junior suites on deck 7, along with a couple Aurora stateroom superiors which feature French balconies. And most of the accommodation on board are balcony staterooms like mine, although there are a few sort of superior balcony staterooms, which of course are a little bit larger. Balconies are externally sort of locked when you're on open waters, such as the Drake Passage. But really, I think what I really appreciated about having a balcony was the floor-to-ceiling views that they afforded, because balcony size can vary quite a bit. I think I was quite forward in my position, so it was kind of towards the tapering end of the balcony sizes. But that's something that we could always advise you if you were particularly keen on a balcony size. They're also, throughout our voyage, the partitions weren't extended, but they can be. And if you have an interconnecting cabin, then you can sort of have it arranged so that you've got a longer balcony. What I especially appreciated about my cabin, other than the fact it was incredibly comfortable and, you know, beautifully appointed, was that there was a lot of sockets available for charging, more so than normal, I felt. So of course you've got a couple of USB charging points by the beds and also the desk, but there's also several charging points with international adapters. So that was really, really helpful, because of course, you know, that you're more likely, I guess, to have sort of camera equipment rather than just perhaps an iPhone, although that's why I ended up having to rely on. Totally irrelevant story there. But of course, you know, you might actually need to have an actual sort of plug-in socket for charging your camera batteries, etc., rather than a USB might not quite cut it. So that was really, really helpful, really, really useful. But what I also really appreciated as well were the heated bathroom floors. They were something of a saving grace between morning and afternoon landings in particular. You know, you just take off your waterproof jacket and trousers, perhaps also your socks and gloves as well, put them on the floor, and they'd be nice and toasty for your next landing or Zodiac cruise. So that was just a bit of a godsend, really, and one of my favourite features of the cabin. So as I say, I thought the cabin was spacious, it was comfortable, it was well appointed. The TV, I don't usually watch TV or even turn a TV on usually, but I found it was useful to have a look at the daily plan. But also, if you don't quite fancy physically going to the lecture theatre to see something, you can actually watch it live, which I think I did on the first day of the Drake Passage crossing. I did all the mandatory briefings, but I think there was a lecture that I just didn't quite really feel able to leave my bed for, and so watching it on the TV was really, really handy, to be honest. So so some really thoughtful features that you could enjoy and make use of in the cabin. Deck 4 is also where you'll find the captain's suite, the highest available. It's a fairly similar layout to the junior suites, albeit slightly larger, and while the junior suite minibars are stocked complimentary just once at the start of the voyage, the captain's suite minibar enjoys complimentary stocking throughout. The suites, whether junior or captains, also have a free bottle of champagne at the start of their voyage and complimentary use of binoculars. Deck 5, the main deck, is named after Sylvia Earle. All the decks on the ship are named after leading female pioneers in conservation, and you can find information boards about the women and their work on their respective deck, which are really interesting and inspiring. On Deck 5, you'll find the Tech-type bar, the reception, which tends to deal with the hotel side of the ship. Rosie and Ari manage the expedition side of things at the expedition desk, as we've seen. You've also got the shop, the lecture theatre, which was one of the areas we frequented most, sometimes just having a cup of coffee or hot chocolate and having a chat in between landings. This is also where lectures were held, as well as the mandatory sort of safety briefings, etc. Captain's cocktails and the daily briefings, looking at the plan for the following day and recapping what we'd experienced that day. So, for example, if we had spotted a red oil seal for the first time or orcas during dinner, a member of the E-team would give us more information, about their breeding habits, their food, life, all that sort of stuff. Beyond the lecture theatre, there's a citizen science centre. So if any samples were taken from a citizen science Zodiac cruise, they can be looked at under the microscopes, and passengers can be encouraged to identify different types of plankton found in the ocean water, for example. And you will also find the lower part of the 2-deck atrium that's inside the bow, and it boasts lovely glass windows for superb views. The upper part of the atrium takes you to the gorgeous library on deck 6, which was a really comfy and well appointed space. And that's where you can also find and use laptops. For example, if you wanted to share your photos, you could upload them on the laptops. The rest of deck 6 is accommodation. Back on deck 5, there's also the main restaurant, the Gentoo restaurant, which is a buffet for lunch and breakfast, but a la carte for evenings. The other restaurant on board, the Rock Hopper, is on deck 8 and also features some more alfresco seating. Rock Hopper is a la carte for breakfast, lunch and dinner, but you do need to make a reservation for dinner, which is when it specialises in steaks, etc., which were delicious. It's also where the barbecue was held, which takes place on every voyage. After all, AE expeditions are Australian. Also, fun fact, on day 6 of every voyage, AE expeditions have committed to a sustainable sea day in honour of Sylvia Earle and her commitment to the conservation of oceans, so seafood is not available on the menu that day. Now, hopping back up to deck 7, you'll find plenty of deck space for searching for wildlife and icebergs, or doing the cloud survey, etc., which is also part of the citizen science programme, and has links to NASA. It's also where you'll find the gym, which I must admit I didn't get around to doing despite my intentions before the trip. But I did make use of the hot tubs and sauna. You do need to reserve a time for when you want to use the gym, hot tubs or sauna. Up on deck 8, along with the Rock Hopper restaurant, you'll find the observation lounge and bar. And more outside observation areas. If memory serves, the smoking area was outside the deck on deck 8. So there we have it, the Sylvia Earle, which was my home whilst I was on my Antarctica voyage, and it was the most incredible experience, and I just felt so comfortable and relaxed on board, had all the amenities I could possibly need to enjoy, relaxing, making the most of the beautiful surroundings and wildlife around us. You might have noticed, of course, that yes, there wasn't a grand theatre or casino or nightclub or anything like that, but you just don't need that on expedition. It's just not necessary, and it certainly wasn't missed. As I say, we had all the amenities we could possibly ask for to relax, enjoy some convivial conversation, discussing the incredible things we'd already seen or experienced, and yeah, it was fantastic, and I can highly recommend it. So yes, that was the Sylvia Earle. I hope you enjoyed our ship tour. Thank you.